Welcome back to Pulse Point, your personalized briefing on a key topic you want to understand better. Today, it's the future of work in the age of AI. You're hearing a lot of hype, but by 2025, things are going to look really different. We want you to be ready for those changes, not caught off guard. To help us break down this complex topic, we've got an expert who can translate the headlines into practical insights. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. I think it's important to start by understanding that AI and its close cousin, machine learning, are already woven into our daily lives. We're talking about things like those chatbots that pop up on websites, or how your favorite streaming service seems to know exactly what you want to watch next. That's all powered by AI.
It's almost like AI is working behind the scenes
Right.
without us even realizing it. So how does this go from behind the scenes to front and center by 2025? What kind of changes should we be prepared for?
Well, one of the biggest shifts we'll see is an acceleration of automation, especially in sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and transportation. Think about it. AI assisting doctors with diagnoses, robots managing assembly lines, stores with fully automated checkouts, and self-driving trucks delivering goods. These are all things that are either in development or already starting to roll out.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty dramatic shift, especially for folks whose jobs are directly impacted by those changes. It's understandable that some people might be feeling anxious about what this means for their future.
Absolutely, and it's important to acknowledge those concerns. Estimates suggest that we could see a 20 to 25% job displacement in these areas by 2025. That's a significant number of people who will need to adapt and find new roles.
20 to 25%, that's a lot of people. It sounds like this isn't just a matter of learning a few new software programs. We're talking about entire career paths potentially being disrupted. What happens to those folks?
Here's where it gets really interesting. While some jobs are being phased out, a whole wave of entirely new W jobs is emerging. These are jobs that didn't even exist a few years ago, and they span a wide range of fields and skill sets.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
So what are some of these new opportunities? Give us some examples. Especially for folks who may not have a background in tech.
Well, for starters, someone needs to build, maintain, and improve all these AI systems. This is where roles like AI trainers, data scientists, and machine learning engineers come in. But it goes beyond just the technical side. As AI becomes more integrated into our lives, we'll need people who can ensure it's being used ethically and responsibly. That's where AI ethicists and governance specialists become vital.
So even if you're not a coder, there are still ways to be involved in this AI revolution. That's reassuring to hear. What about folks who are already established in their careers? Is it possible to adapt and transition into these new roles, even if you're not fresh out of school?
Absolutely. In fact, many of the skills that are valuable in traditional roles are transferable to the AI world. It's about finding the right combination of your existing expertise and new technical knowledge. For example, if you're in marketing, understanding how AI can personalize customer experiences could make you a valuable asset. Or if you're in healthcare, combining your medical knowledge with AI-powered diagnostics could open up new possibilities.
So it's not necessarily about starting from scratch. It's more about building on what you already know and finding those connections to the world of AI. It sounds like having a strong foundation in digital literacy is going to be key, no matter what field you're in. What are some basic steps people can take right now to start building that digital literacy?
One of the most important things is to familiarize yourself with some basic tools and concepts. Things like spreadsheets, data visualization, and basic programming can go a long way. There are tons of free online resources and courses available for anyone who wants to learn, even just spending some time exploring different AI applications and understanding how they work can give you a leg up.
So it's about dipping your toes in the water and getting comfortable with the basic concepts. Doesn't have to be overwhelming, but let's say someone has mastered the basics. What are the must-have skills that will help people thrive in this AI-driven world? What should people be focusing on as they build their careers?
Beyond those technical skills, what's going to be incredibly valuable are what we call transferable skills. These are things like critical thinking, problem solving, adaptability, and the ability to learn new things quickly. Machines are great at following instructions, but they still struggle with the kind of creative thinking and complex problem solving that humans excel at.
So it's not just about knowing how to use technology. It's about being able to think critically and solve problems in creative ways. That makes sense. Are there any specific transferable skills that are particularly important in the context of AI?
One that's particularly relevant is what we call computational thinking. This is basically the ability to break down a problem into smaller parts, identify patterns, and develop logical solutions. It's a way of approaching problems that aligns well with how AI systems work. Another key skill is communication. Being able to clearly explain complex technical concepts to non-technical audiences will be incredibly valuable as AI becomes more integrated into our lives.
It sounds like this is about more than just learning how to code. It's about developing a whole new way of thinking and approaching problems. But let's be honest, some folks are going to be understandably worried. About job security in this new landscape, are there any jobs that are relatively safe from automation?
That's a great question. And it's one that's on a lot of people's minds. While no job is completely immune to change, there are certain roles that rely heavily on uniquely human qualities that are difficult to replicate with AI. Things like creativity, empathy, emotional intelligence, and complex social interactions. So professions that require these skills, like artists, therapists, teachers, social workers, and entrepreneurs, are likely to remain in high demand.
So there's still a place for human connection. And creativity in this increasingly technological world, that's definitely a point of hope amidst all this change. But it's not just about individual jobs, is it? This shift towards AI is going to have ripple effects across our entire society. What are some of the bigger picture considerations we need to be thinking about as we navigate this transition?
That's exactly right. This isn't just about individuals adapting, it's about our societies adapting as a whole. And there are some big questions we need to address collectively.
You're right. We're going to need some time to unpack all those bigger picture issues. But we're running out of time for this segment. Let's dive into those societal implications and what we can do to ensure a fair and equitable transition in part 2 of our deep dive. See you soon.
We were talking about the bigger societal implications of this AI-driven future of work.
Exactly. We touched on the anxieties around job displacement. But what about the systems we have in place to support people through these shifts? Can they handle this level of change?
That's a critical question. One idea that's been gaining traction is universal basic income, or UBI. It's essentially a safety net, providing everyone with a guaranteed minimum income, regardless of their employment status. The idea is to create a buffer as people transition between jobs, especially if those transitions are driven by automation.
It's like a safety net for the age of AI. Interesting. But wouldn't that be incredibly expensive to implement? And are there any potential downsides to providing everyone with a guaranteed income?
Those are valid concerns. UBI is a complex policy with a lot of debate surrounding it. Critics argue that it could disincentivize work and be unsustainable in the long run. Proponents, on the other hand, say it could foster entrepreneurship and allow people to pursue their passions without the fear of financial ruin. It's definitely a conversation that needs to happen on a societal level.
So a lot to consider there.
Right.
But it's not just about providing financial support. We also need to think about how we prepare people for the jobs of the future. Education seems like it's going to play a huge role in all of this.
Absolutely. The education system needs a major overhaul to keep pace with the demands of an AI-driven world. We need to be equipping students with the skills they'll need to thrive in this new landscape. And that includes not just technical skills, but also those all-important transferable skills we talked about earlier. Things like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and adaptability.
So less rote memorization and more focus on developing those critical thinking muscles. It sounds like we need to start early too. Exposing kids to these concepts from a young age could make a huge difference.
I completely agree. Introducing coding and computational thinking into elementary and middle school curricula can give kids a foundation that will serve them well throughout their lives. But it's not just about STEM fields. We also need to emphasize creativity, communication, and collaboration, skills that will be essential for working alongside AI in the future.
It's almost like we need a whole new model of education, one that's designed for a world where technology is constantly evolving, and the jobs of tomorrow may not even exist yet. It's a big challenge, but also an exciting opportunity to rethink how we prepare future generations.
I'm glad you see it as an opportunity. It's a chance to move away from the traditional one-size-fits-all approach to education and create a more personalized and dynamic system that caters to individual strengths and interests.
Okay, so we've got this massive shift happening in the workforce, driven by AI. We've talked about potential solutions like UBI and the need for education reform. But what about the companies that are driving this automation in the first place? Don't they have a responsibility to help their workers adapt to these changes?
Absolutely. It's not just about implementing AI for the sake of efficiency or profit. Companies need to consider the human impact of these decisions and invest in upskilling and retraining their workforce. They need to create pathways for their employees to transition into new roles, whether within the company or in a different field. It's about ethical and responsible implementation of AI.
So it's a shared responsibility. It's not just on individuals to adapt.
Yeah.
Governments, educational institutions, companies all need to work together to ensure a smooth and equitable transition to this AI-driven future. That sounds like a tall order.
It is, but I'm optimistic. We faced technological disruptions before, and we found ways to adapt. The key is to start planning now, to have these conversations, to invest in education and training, and to create a culture of lifelong learning.
You've given us a lot to think about. From practical tips on building digital literacy to bigger picture considerations like UBI and education reform, it's clear that AI is going to have a profound impact on our lives, both individually and collectively. But before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts on one more aspect of this AI revolution, the ethical implications with her.
That's a crucial point. As we develop and deploy increasingly sophisticated AI systems, it's essential that we do so ethically and responsibly. We need to consider the potential biases that can be embedded in algorithms, the impact on privacy, and the potential for misuse. These are complex challenges that require careful thought and collaboration across disciplines.
Almost like we need a whole new set of rules and guidelines for the age of AI. How do we ensure that these systems are being used for good and not for harm?
It's a complex issue, but I believe it boils down to transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. We need to make sure that the development and deployment of AI are transparent, so that we can identify and mitigate potential biases. We need to hold those who develop and deploy AI accountable for the decisions made by these systems, and we need to make sure that the benefits of AI are shared widely and don't just accrue to a select few.
It's a lot to consider. But it seems like these conversations are happening. More and more people are raising these ethical concerns and demanding that AI be developed and used in a way that benefits all of humanity. That's encouraging.
It is, and it's essential that those conversations continue. We need to bring diverse perspectives to the table and engage in open and honest dialogue about the future we want to create with AI.
You're right. This is a conversation that everyone needs to be a part of. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this episode, from the practical to the philosophical. As we wrap up, what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember as they navigate this AI-driven future?
If I had to choose one, it would be to embrace a mindset of lifelong learning. The skills you have today may not be the ones you need tomorrow, so stay curious, stay adaptable, and never stop learning. The future is full of possibilities, and those who are willing to embrace change will be the ones who thrive.
That's a great message to end on. Embrace lifelong learning and stay curious. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question to ponder. If AI could automate any aspect of your current job, what would it be? And what would you do with the freed up time and energy?
That's a fantastic question. It really gets to the heart of what it means to be human in the age of AI. What are the things that make us uniquely valuable? What are the things that bring us joy and fulfillment? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves as we navigate this new landscape.
That's right. It's not just about surviving the changes brought about by AI. It's about thriving in this new world. It's about using AI as a tool to augment our own capabilities and create a future that's better for everyone. And on that note, we'll wrap up this part of our deep dive. See you soon for the final installment, where we'll explore some specific steps you can take to prepare for the future of work. Welcome back to Pulse Point. It's time for the final part of our deep dives into the future of work in the age of AI. We've talked about the big changes coming, the potential challenges, and even some of the exciting opportunities that lie ahead. Now, let's get practical. What are some specific steps you can take to prepare for this AI-driven future?
It can feel daunting, but even small steps make a difference. First, get a handle on your digital literacy, not just using apps, but understanding the underlying tech. There are tons of free resources online. Khan Academy, Coursera, even YouTube tutorials can introduce you to coding basics, data analysis, those sorts of things.
It's almost like learning a new language, right? You don't need to become a fluent programmer overnight. But even understanding the basic grammar of technology can make a huge difference.
Exactly. And as you're learning, think about how those skills could apply to your current field. AI is going to impact almost every industry. So the more you can connect the dots between tech and your expertise, the more valuable you'll become. Let's say you're a teacher. Could you use AI tools to personalize lesson plans? Or, if you're in sales, could you analyze customer data to predict their needs more effectively?
So it's about looking for those opportunities to blend your existing knowledge. With new technologies, it's not just about replacing humans. It's about finding that synergy between human and artificial intelligence.
Precisely. And as you're upskilling, don't forget the human element, the things AI can't replicate. Creativity, critical thinking, empathy. Those are going to be even more important in the years to come. Volunteer, join a debate club. Anything that hones those soft skills will give you an edge.
So it's a two-pronged approach, building your tech skills and nurturing those uniquely human strengths. It sounds like this is going to be a continuous process of learning and adaptation.
It is. The job market of 2025 will be very different
from what we see today, and it will continue to evolve rapidly. Embrace that change. View it as an adventure, not a threat.
That's such a great point. It's about shifting our mindset from fear to curiosity. And speaking of curiosity, you left our listeners with a thought-provoking question in the last segment. If AI could automate any part of your current job, what would it be? And what would you do with that freed up time and energy? I'd love to hear what our listeners come up with. For me, it's the repetitive administrative tasks that drain my energy. Imagine if I could delegate those to an AI assistant and focus on the strategic, creative work that truly excites me. That's the promise of AI. Not just to replace jobs, but to free us up to do what we do best.
It's a powerful vision of the future, a future where technology empowers us to focus on our strengths and pursue our passions. And it all starts with taking those first steps, embracing lifelong learning, and staying curious about the possibilities that lie ahead.
Well said. AI is a powerful tool, but it's up to us to shape how it's used and what kind of future we build with it. Stay curious, stay prepared, and let's shape the future together. Thanks for joining us on Pulse Point.